The Economic Forum continues there in Swizterland. Our reporter Diabo Setho is standing by to give us an update on what's happening there today. Diabo, a very warm welcome to you all the way in Davos. Thank you very much indeed for coming through. So I understand that there was a dinner last night that was hosted, and Tito Mboweni making a number of pronouncements. What was discussed there?
Good morning, Blame. I know that a lot of our viewers back home, they really want to know the kind of messaging that Team South Africa is bringing to Davos at the World Economic Forum this year, especially with the kind of challenges that we find ourselves in. This is with SAA, this is with Eskom, this is with the low economic growth, this is with the joblessness. So what are we bringing to the plate? So yes, last night Team South Africa held a dinner where the Minister of Finance, who's also the leader of the team, made some remarks about the messaging that they're bringing to Davos, essentially saying, look, we can't spin anything that's happening in their country, but South Africa does still have a lot to offer to the world. That is, he spoke about, of course, the slow economic pace of reforms, and say that there is something being done. Perhaps it's not being done at the pace that the world wants it to, but something is happening nonetheless. But I'd like you to take you to the clip where he was saying that for you to listen for yourself, Blaine.
We will go to Davos and tell our story as is, no spinning. Because if you spin, you are most likely going to trip. And if you trip, investors can see through all of that. And then you lose credibility. And that is something that we do not want to do. So the messages are very simple. Firstly, that South Africa is part of the African continent. As such, what we do in South Africa should also contribute to the growth and development of the African continent. Therefore, in our interactions with other people here at Davos, we should also be able to tell the African story. African story is one of consolidating peace, and during the course of this year, to silence the guns. Improved economic performance, with growth still expected to be buoyant, although not at the same levels we would have wanted to. The African leadership is committed to ensuring that Africa is connected to the whole world. And therefore, the Davos meetings should not just focus on South Africa, but focus on the continent of Africa as a whole.
Diabo, I guess if you want to convey a message, this is indeed one of the perfect platforms to do so. I mean, this is the 50th WEF in Davos, and we're talking about representatives from about 117 countries in attendance. What would you say Team South Africa is underlining in terms of messaging?
Well, it's really simple, like the minister says in that clip, Blaine, about the fact that South Africa is still open for business. And in fact, because they're here with the business delegation as well, a couple of companies, multinationals and South African companies are represented here. I also had the opportunity to speak to some of them last night during the dinner, to find out where their thinking is, particularly with the low growth environment. You'll know that this obviously impacts somewhat. It impacts a lot, as a matter of fact, confidence. Think about yourself, and when you want to invest your money, you want to invest it in a vehicle that performs well. But when I spoke to the Investec joint CEO, Fana Didi, he made an interesting remark about Africa. It's time now for South Africa to reclaim its position as a into Africa using this conference. We have achieved a lot, he says. There's still that more can be done, but most importantly is regaining the gateway into Africa position that we once held so firmly. But do listen to him for yourself as well.
The short-term forecast and prognosis for the country is obviously less than what we would like to see. But part of the reason we are here is to try and encourage international investors to come to the country, to bring capital, to bring skills, and on that basis help us grow the economy. We are a strong economy in terms of the strength of our institutions, our infrastructure. We are a beachfront into the African continent, so we're quite confident that over time we can regain our position, we can grow the economy again.
I think we were very encouraged by the comments the Minister made. I mean, it's consistent with what we've been hearing for, I guess the last 6-9 months. I think there's a recognition that spectrum is hugely important, that the existing bands are basically full of traffic, and if we want to bring more people into the data world, carry more traffic on the networks, we really need as a country to proceed with the licensing of the spectrum. The Minister said that we've got the policy statement, it's been handed over to the regulator, and he committed that he is also pushing from his side for it to move forward speedily, and that's very encouraging, I think, for all the operators.
Diabo, the other very important theme that's coursing through the World Economic Forum is the issue of climate change. We have the likes of Greta Thunberg there, who's really pushing, I guess, a message for the past year or two with regards to treating climate change as a real crisis. If you don't, we cannot solve it. What's South Africa's standpoint on this?
Look, so we obviously know, Blaine, the impact that climate change has on South Africa. We've seen the drought, we've seen the floods, and how that wreaks havoc with households, how that wreaks havoc with businesses and ultimately the economy. And with the agriculture sector also being one of the sectors that we are pinning our hopes onto in order to, maximize the growth of the economy. If climate change is not dealt with, it obviously, impacts a lot on, firstly, that and broadly into the economy. So South Africa, I know that a lot of businesses will be sitting on panelists, on a lot of panels where they'll be talking about what South Africa is preparing for climate change or how it's preparing itself. You remember that we are also signatories to the COP21 Paris Agreement of reducing carbon emissions. So this also, pushes us as a country to do something about climate change. But yes, you are correct. Climate change is a big issue. Yesterday, I also had the opportunity to speak to the SEP International executive, who told us about a survey that they had done that shows that a lot of people, in fact, out of 10,000 people that they had surveyed across 35 countries, most of them did not believe the science behind the causes of climate change, believing that instead human behavior is one that is impacting on.
It's a pity that I think much like Switzerland, the picture was frozen. So we'll try to catch up with Diabo in a short while again to get the update on this very, very important World Economic Forum. It's the 50th, and we're dealing with representatives here from 117 countries. So important decisions, I guess, mapping the way forward in that part of the world is taking place in Davos, Switzerland. Diabo Setho there live for us. We'll try to catch up with her in a short while.